Yeah, this thing is great.
Great band.
That's wood tenting.
And for me, it was access to instruments. That was it. You know, music was huge in our house as far as like listening to music and being around music. The only person, or the only people, I guess, I ever heard my dad say was a genius were musicians. I know it was the way of Max's family too. Max's family had a record store.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, music was big in Max's house, so it was big. But I didn't start playing music until we could afford an instrument. And I was 12 years old, and my dad brought home a K guitar, which is like the cheapest guitar there is. And I had the cheapest electric guitar you could possibly have and no amp. And he said if I was good and I practiced and I got good, then we'd get an amp. And then I got an amp, which was a Gorilla amp, which anybody knows anything about instruments. That's the worst amp you can possibly get. So I had the worst guitar setup possible, but you know, it was access to instruments. You know,
First instrument I played was a trumpet, and that was in a junior high band.
Okay, so we do have somebody from a band. All
A
right.
little bit, yeah. So yeah, you know, that was the deal where my parents bought the trumpet, or it was like $600 or $700 instrument, you know, so they had to do the payments to get the trumpet. And I enjoyed doing it in middle school, but didn't continue in high school. I don't know, I guess maybe wasn't into such a kind of structured routine to sort of musical situation like that. And but I started playing guitar as soon as I stopped playing trumpet. I wanted to move over to guitar. And from there, I started playing punk rock music pretty much, you know, and that's kind of what allowed me to realize that I could make music and write songs even in very crude and, you know, brutal ways, I guess, you know. But, and then in the punk rock bands, there's always a lack of drummers, so I ended up being the drummer a lot of times because of whatever reason they couldn't find a drummer. But here's a drum kit, or at least we got one snare drum and one cymbal. I remember the first band I played drums, it was just one crash cymbal and one drum, just a snare drum that my brother had. But I got my first drum kit when I was 15, I think, is when I started actually playing and practicing the drum kit in any kind of serious way.
when it comes to musicality, I believe that there's two components. You can teach someone a lot, but if you're going to be end up playing professionally, whatever, I think you have to have a certain amount of natural ability too, and you nurture that with hours upon hours upon hours upon years of practice and study. What I did was, first off, my dad actually, it was funny. My dad could play guitar. I didn't know it until I was 12 years old because we didn't have one. He got hard up and had to sell it when I was born. So when he brings home this guitar, he's banging away chords, playing his old stuff, doing like little blues runs, and I just couldn't believe it. It sounded, to me, it was like magic. It was like he was a magician. I was just floored that he could play. And he had this secret his whole life because I just never thought of him as being a person that could play music. My dad was a construction worker in my mind, not a musician. So that floored me, and I was like, I had to learn everything that he learned, and so I became obsessed with it. So it took me about a week to learn everything he knew, and then I was just like, I was obsessed with it, and I would go, and my dad was so awesome. He would take me places, like when I was 13 was the first time I got to see David Honeyboy Edwards live. We went to go see him at a bingo parlor play, and I'm in the front row, like everybody else is like old people, and I'm in the front row watching Honeyboy Edwards play. I'm 13. I'm just floored by it. As musicians trying to keep a tradition alive, I think we have a duty not just to regurgitate the same old stuff. Because here's the deal: like, no one's going to do a Lightning Hopkins song better than Lightning Hopkins. I don't care who you are. You know what I mean? Because he lived that song. It's the same with someone covering Sun House. Like, to me, there's almost certain songs these guys did that were so much a part of their life and who they were. Like, I almost think they're off limits. It's like, you don't do that song. Like, how could you do that song if you didn't live that the way Sun House lived it? So in my mind, what I wanted to do was I wanted to sort of do my own thing, put my own stamp on it. And you know, the reason that we love B.B. King is he picks up a guitar, or he picked up a guitar, and you instantly knew it was B.B. King. You know, even when I was young, like what I would do when I would learn to play a song is I wanted to know how it was done. So I would learn to play it, and I would learn to know how to do it, and I could do it, and then I would just kind of put it to memory and like put it aside. Like I never was like, I want to try to exactly mimic this thing. You know, it's never what I wanted to do. I wanted to know how it was done so that I could do it, and I could put that in my brain and sort of use that as, you know, for future compositions or whatever I was going to be into. You know, it's more about just trying to break it down and know everything that I could about playing fingerstyle country blues. You know, I think that when you play real from the heart music, and people can feel that it is from the heart, that I think that's universal. You know, we've played in 37 countries, and you know, a lot of those, the majority of those, the number one language isn't English, and we are singing and speaking in English, and it doesn't seem to matter because the rest of it comes through. In my mind, and you know, I think that music is a very cool way to communicate because it is universal.
I know the song really before he brings it to all of us because I'm there when he's working on it. You know, I'm
At 4 o'clock
next
in
to
the
him
morning.
at 4 a.m. wearing me out, keep me up playing guitar. So a lot of times we go into it and we already kind of know it. A lot of times he'll just bring a little bit of it to sound check. So he'll just start jamming on something and we'll naturally kind of see where we fit in on it, and he'll say, oh, I like that, or well, why don't you try this? So a lot of times before there's lyrics put together, the whole song's kind of put together instrument-wise with us.
That's true. So many times that happens at sound check, and it's before it's even a song. You know, it's just a little riff that Rev is obsessed with. He's like, man, this thing, and and then we'll just kind of come in and start playing.
The biggest songs that we do. So but I was really into like old jug band stuff. That was kind of like the stuff I was really getting into, and we were listening to some stuff that had washboard on it, and I said, man, it'd be fun to pick up a washboard. That seems like it would be a fun one to mess around with. And I think it was like the next day he went to an antique store and picked one up, and we just kind of started playing it. I don't even know if we were living together then. No, we just started dating. But you know, it was around the same time that Rev had lost the use of his hands and was just regaining after surgery, and so he was, you know, getting back at the guitar, and it was a struggle in the beginning for sure because you lose a lot of that flexibility during that time too. And so I was just there kind of motivating him to keep on playing and kind of mess around on the washboard while he did it. So I know what this guy is going to say. He's just going to say practice relentlessly 10, 12 hours a day. This guy's going to say concentrate just on music. You don't necessarily need to go to school for it. And I'm going to say start researching the business side of it, because there's a lot of that if you're serious about playing music for the rest of your life that you got to educate yourself on. And, you know, not necessarily a degree in music business, although that's great, I'm sure, but knowing, especially since it's a very changing world with music, and you know, a lot of it's digital now, and you can put out albums on your own now a lot easier. Educating yourself on that side so that it can be something that you can do and make a living at and not get ripped off.
She's right. The music business is one of the most complex industries. It really is. I think finance is more simple.
I mean, if you're 8 years old, you probably just need to practice. If you've got the possibility of jumping behind a soundboard at a place and learning the other side of the music too, learning how to run some of that on your own, volunteering in some sorts at a festival as crew for something like that, that's a good experience thing you can get, and a lot that you can learn from other people who've been in the field, but also from the other musicians playing there.
I can say something for a little kid, and I don't care who you are. I don't care how much natural ability you have. The first time you pick up that instrument is hard. It is not going to be easy.
And it's not going to sound good.
And it actually, like, you know, and playing guitar actually hurts when you first start playing guitar. Like, it literally hurts. It hurts your fingers.
Instruments, drums too, for sure. Your fingers will be bleeding. You know?
Like, it hurts.
But you gotta stay motivated and encouraged. You know, you gotta believe in yourself, and hopefully you have people around you that will encourage you and support you. You know, that's a lot of what it takes. Luckily, I think all of us were lucky in that way. You know?
Playing with someone else helps, you know. So finding a friend that has that same kind of interest. So instead of sitting around playing video games, you're sitting around playing the ukulele together or whatever instrument the other person can play. That's a real
Definitely.
motivator when you can do something together and create something with someone else. I think that's a big part of it.
There was this Eric Clapton thing that was over, someone had got me. I had it up there. And I looked over at Eric Clapton, particularly Eric Clapton. And I'm like, there is nothing that guy can do that I can't do. There's nothing. There's nothing that guy could do that I couldn't do. When I was 12 years old, I thought that. I'm like, there's nothing that he could do that I couldn't do. That guy is in no way better than me in any way. So I would say that to someone who is in the 4th, 5th, 6th grade. Like, remember that. There is nothing on this planet that anybody can do that you can't do if your heart is in it and you're willing to put in the time. And sometimes, like, you may not end up being Eric Clapton, but what you hopefully you do is you find who you are, you know, and that's the idea in everything. You know what I mean? If it's not going to be guitar, if it's going to be drums, if it's not going to be music, you know, you've got to put in the time and figure it out, because you will not find yourself otherwise.